That's my baby girl right there. Ooh, she with her friends. I'm a dog, I ain't shit. I'ma wind up in her friends. Bad guy, outlaw. Ooh, I'm like Pac, but I ain't die after the second time I got shot.
What's good? This is your boy DarkSkinTico. This video is going to be about parenting, red pill parenting. This is red pill parenting number 3. Excuse me while I adjust my lovely sound here because it's, I'm trying to transfer from one thing to another. One headset to another, basically. One sec. Let's see. There we go. Let's adjust this now. But basically, what the topic's going to be about is Red Pill Parenting 3. This is going to cover topics such as step parenting, let me see here. Yeah, this is going to cover topics such as step parenting and things like that. And it's going to cover topics such as, there we go, much better, much better. There we go. That's what I'm talking about right there. This is going to cover topics such as, the blended family, the blended family, step parenting versus real parenting, hurdles, the reality, the Disney fairy tale of it, how they try to paint it if you're going to be a step parent, and my afterthoughts, basically. So it's going to be covered the blended family, step parenting versus real parenting, reality and hurdles in reality, the Disney fairy tale that they always sell you about step parenting, and my afterthoughts on the lovely topic. This is not going to be for everybody, so I know everybody's not going to want to watch this, but it's a topic that needs to be addressed because it still affects people till this day, especially a lot of the people in the manosphere were affected by this, so therefore people are affected by this no matter how much they want to cut it or pretend like it's not affecting them, because there's a decent amount of people that were raised by step parents in the manosphere. And this is why they're the way they are, or this is why they're the way they are, and this is why they became the people that they are. Then you're on top of that, you got a lot of people who are burned while trying to be step parents to children that didn't belong to them also. So this is a very important topic for the manosphere, whether you like it or not, because there's a lot of men who actually, threw themselves in the fire or got burned and don't really want to talk about it, or kind of sort of avoid it due to embarrassment for all intents and purposes. So this is one of those things where I'm going to talk about it. I've never done it, so I've never been one to do it. So it's one of those things where it's going to be talked about for all intents and purposes based on, friends and people in the manosphere's experiences being a step parent who told me about their experience being a step parent for all intents and purposes and stuff along the lines of that. So it's going to be experiences from people in the manosphere, my friends, and my days, psychology, basically. People who've been on the couch and told me about their deepest, darkest secrets and deepest, darkest fears of being a step parent for all intents and purposes. So this is all going to be based on evidence across the board and some statistics, but basically when it comes down to it. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, being a step parent is not all it's cracked up to be. Are there moments where being a step parent is great? Yeah. And those are few and far between. And they tend to not really be numerous. They tend to be very sporadic or very, what's the word I'm looking for? We use in the manosphere. They're outliers for all intents and purposes. So being a step parent's not always all it's cracked up to be. There are moments when it is. There's moments when you actually feel like you're doing a good job. There's moments where you're being used and taken advantage of for all intents and purposes as a step parent. The sad part about that is I'm going to explain that in this lovely video if you were listening. Irony to it is, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, being a step parent is not as rewarding as everybody makes it out to be. I mean, you may feel good about taking care of somebody else at a point, but at the end of the day, it's very draining. It's very draining. It's very taxing to you. On top of that, a lot of things come with it. Where like the fact that you can't discipline the child actually plays a huge role on it, why it's not the greatest job to have as a step parent. Because basically, you can't discipline the child, but you can pay for the child. You see how that works? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, why isn't the actual father paying for the child? Why am I paying all this money for the child? Why isn't the father actually pitching in? Why aren't we going halves on this shit, basically? So it's one of those things where like you're going to literally pay for a child that don't belong to you, and the father's literally getting away with murder on paying for the child. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, it's like you're basically paying for something that she wouldn't have the actual father of the children pay for. Or you're basically doing something that the actual father of the children don't even have to do, if you know what I mean. So it's one of those things where it's like you're putting yourself into a predicament where you're paying for something that she's not making the actual father of the child actually pay for, which is automatically a downfall to that altogether. And it makes it a bad situation. It makes it a very bad, sticky situation for all intents and purposes, for the fact that you're doing something that the actual father should be doing, but she's not making the actual father do it. Nor is she pursuing the court to make the actual father do it. You see what I'm saying? It's perfectly fine to send him to jail, but it's one of those things where it's like he's not paying child support, he's still not paying child support, he's still not paying child support, he's still not paying child support. Dark Sith. Dark Sith is here. DarkSkinTico's here, pretty much. But yeah, what's up, Shinobi One? But it's one of those things where, like, you as the parent, you as the step parent, have to realize that this is going to be a waste of your time and money. And my thing about time and money is you can always get money back, but you can never get time back. You see what I'm saying? You can always get money back, but you can never get time back. And that's the overall problem. So all the time that you put into this child, well, and usually it's just money, because money mainly because at the end of the day, it's one of those things. It's one of those things where, like, at the end of the day, you're faced with a situation that you either A, have to look at or deal with, or B, ignore and pretend like it's not existing. Because a lot of men will do that. They'll pretend like it's not existing. Like a large chunk, about 90, I would say 98% of stepdads basically are just there for financial support. That's it. They're not there to discipline. That's not their job. They're just there to basically be a big ass ATM machine and pay for the house and pay for the children are younger. They're paying for their activities. They're paying for all this stuff. What's up, Baron Yam? They're paying for all that stuff that your actual dad should be paying for. Sad part about that, if your mom's very vindictive, she's probably not going to make your father actually pay for it, because if she makes him pay for it, there's this unspoken rule in the court system where if he can't see his children, he can always go when you go to court, he can always bring that up and actually get better custody of the children for the fact that she's denying him custody of the children. And it's one of those things where it's like men use that to their advantage with women, especially if women ain't shit anyway, or women, make stupid decisions on a regular basis. They always have that backup plan to use to their advantage. Like, you got visitation rights, but she's not bringing them, or she's refusing. Therefore, I can use this against you. And a lot of men know this, and a lot of men use this for the fact that there's a lot of women out there that will actually literally not bring a child for visitation. Hell, there's women women out there that would like make up an excuse on why they can't make it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes there's good excuses on why they can't make it, but at the end of the day, it's like one of those things where it's like, well, you kind of sort of chose it, so therefore this is the mess you're in. So now you got to get yourself out of the damn mess yourself. And the sad part about that is a lot of men who get themselves into situations like this always end up stuck in a situation or not being able to get out of the situation at hand. It's sad, but it's so true. What's up, a manly load? Which is actually pretty bad as an actual father. The sad part about that, as a stepfather, you basically get the role of father, but you're the role of ATM father basically. So all you can do is basically pay for anything and everything that the child wants if the child is young. That's all you get. That's all you got. That's all you get. And that's all you get to do. And that's pretty much all it really is. You're basically paying for a child that's not yours, that she's not making the actual father pay for, and that's all you can be, and that's all you would ever be. You're basically just a walking ATM for her children and her. So whenever she wants to do something, you just have to shut up and come out your pockets. Whenever a child fucks up, you can't discipline them or stop them from fucking up. You merely got to pay for the consequences and outcome to their actions for all intents and purposes. Usually how that works. And the sad part about that is this is pretty much this is pretty much how the whole entire dynamic of stepfather is. Most of them, most stepfathers, I would say about 95% of stepfathers, that's all they're really relegated to is a wallet and clean up the mess, basically. So they're the wallet and they're the cleaner, pretty much. So they clean up all the messes that their children make from the stupid decision that their mother made on leaving their actual father or getting to that whole entire relationship in the first place. If it was an abusive relationship, you chose it, you destroyed it, and now your children are a consequence of that, which is very sad. And it's like, well, had she had made a better choice, that wouldn't be a thing. Yeah, true, but when have you ever really known them to actually make really good choices? When have you ever known them to not make short-term stupid choices? The sad part about that, a lot of women blow up their relationships on a chance of having a fling, all because of society, all because of a feeling. And that's typically how a lot of this stuff works. And the sad part about that, a lot of women will continue with a relationship on the chance of a feeling, on how the excitement, and you never know what's going to happen. He might punch you in the face, or he might give you a kiss, or he might bring him some flowers, or he might slap the shit out of you. You know, you never know what's going to happen on the next episode of My Fucked Up Relationship. And that's pretty much how it is in relationships with these women. And they leave the father and they go to the next person. But the sad part about that, they still have feelings for the father. And there's a high chance, if you're in a relationship with a single mother, she's going to cheat on you with the baby father. It's basically how it works. It's basic math. It's sad, but it's so true. It's basic math. She had children with the guy, so she has a connection with the guy, a deep emotional, sensual, spiritual connection with the guy for all intents and purposes. So don't be shocked. They'll talk as much shit as much shit as humanly possible on the guy, but at the end of the day, the more shit they talk, the more they want to fuck him. It's pretty much how it works. So the more shit a single mother talks on her baby daddy, the more she actually wants to fuck him. It's just facts. So if she brings up her baby daddy and bring up like stupid shit like that, she thought about him and she wants to fuck him. She misses him. She thought about him. She wants to fuck him. End of story. And there's not too many women that can actually say that without lying to your fucking face about shit like that. Trust me, they still want him. To a certain extent, they still want him. Even if he beat her ass to an inch of her life, they still want him. Even if he did something stupid and destroyed her whole entire life, they still want him. Even if he got her into like a financial bind due to crime, she still wants him. At the end of the day, she still wants him. That's pretty much how it works. And that's one of those many things that, I'm going to touch on in this lovely video. Dating a single mother basically is basically like asking for trouble. Don't get me wrong. There are some that make it through, but the sad part about that, a lot of them single mothers, even if you make it through, are actually cheating on the stepfather. It's just facts. And the sad part about that is a lot of these single mothers are either cheating on the stepfather with the baby daddy, or they're cheating on the stepfather with an ex-boyfriend or somebody that they met at work. It's basically how it works. So there's a lot of single mothers who are literally getting their back blown out at work or meeting with a coworker at work. It is what it is. What's up, Hayden? So there's a lot of guys that are basically doing this, and a lot of single mothers that are basically getting their back blown out by their coworker or getting their back blown out. They're going on a business trip, or they're working late, or something along the lines of that, where you're literally getting it in with their coworkers. And the sad part about that, you'll notice this in relationships like this, because what'll happen is the the mother of the children will start acting very angry or very agitated with the actual the stepfather. Typically, how this works is the minute she starts getting very agitated or or angry with the stepfather, it's basically it's basically almost his time to go. He's basically about to be put out the fucking house, or he's basically about to be replaced for all intents and purposes, or let go. That's typically how that works. Think of it like a job. If you're a stepfather, if the mother of the children are getting angry with the stepfather, increasingly he's about to be replaced or he's about to be let go from his job. That's typically how that works. And the sad part about that is 9 times out of 10, if that's the case, she probably is doing it for one of two reasons. One, he's overstepping his boundaries with her children, or two, she's kind of sort of interested in somebody else that she met. It's typically how a lot of that works. A lot of times when a single mother meets somebody else at work or a coworker, the actual stepfather gets replaced. Or if the baby daddy is back in communication or back in her line of vision or sight, she's usually talking to the baby daddy for all intents and purposes. So a lot of men that are in these relationships get screwed over by this on a regular basis. And it's sad, but it's true. And it's one of those things where you got to actually think to yourself, was it really worth being a stepfather? Was it really worth being that stepfather? The sad part about that is sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's really not. It's really not. And the cold hard reality about it is once you actually think about it, you don't wasted all this time and money on a family who at the end of the day totally put you out or kicked you out. Like, think about that. You done basically wasted your time, money, and resources on a woman that kicked you to the curb. This is typically why dating a mother of, a single mother that, has a baby daddy still in the picture is not even the greatest idea in the world. Because the sad part about that is a lot of women get themselves into messes. And the sad part about that, a lot of women like this will actually say some shit to you like, I know how to tell the difference between a person that just wants to hit it and quit it. In fact, they don't. They don't. They really don't. No woman actually knows the difference between that. Because the sad part about that is sometimes I often think to myself, especially listening to women talk on a couch, is they actually enjoy being pumped and dumped. Because once you think about it, the way they live, the way they talk about it, and the way they actually portray it is like they believe that they know the difference between a man that just want to hit it, smash it, and bash it, and stuff like that, when in fact they really don't. Because at the end of the day, a lot of single mothers get themselves into situationships, not actual relationships. Because at the end of the day, a lot of single mothers will take the best of the bottom of the barrel. It's the best way I can actually describe it to you. A lot of single mothers usually date the best on the bottom of the barrel. And the sad part about that, they'll never go for the best of the mid tier, the best of the mid tier of the barrel, or they'll never go for the best of the barrel. Because the sad part about that, nobody ever really wants them in those tiers. Nobody ever wants them. Because usually how it works when it comes to a social hierarchy or hierarchy, the best way I can describe it to you is using double I's 3-tier system. You're either a 1-1, a 1-2, a 1-3, a 2-1, a 2-2, a 2-3, or you're a 3-1, a 3-2, or a 3-3. Most single mothers, if not all, fall in the 1-1 category, 1-2 category. You see what I'm saying? There are some that are in the 1-3 category, but that's all they'll ever be is 1-3 at the most. There's not too many single mothers in the 2-2 category, 2-2 category for all intents and purposes, because that is their economics. That is their economic thing. That's where they are. That's what it'll be. That's what it'll stay. That's pretty much how it goes. The sad part about that is once you actually get to that point, you realize very quickly that not everybody is in the same boat, or not all women have the same value. Once you realize that, and it's sad, but it's so true. Like, not all women have the same value, so therefore, there's no point in even trying to give her this invisible value that she doesn't really deserve. You're basically just making it worse than it needs to be, or not as not as you're basically inflating her ego for all intents and purposes. That's simply how that works, especially if you're a higher tier person. Um, because like I said, I fluctuate between two, 3, and 3-1. To be honest with people, like I said, I fluctuate between 2-3 and 3-1. So it's one of those things where it's like I can be at 3-1, but most times I usually like level out about like a 2-3, or just chill out at 2-3 for all intents and purposes. Because I don't really believe in, like, being too flashy, or showing off for all intents and purposes. So it's one of those things where it's like most single mothers in this world are going to fall between 1-1, 1-2, and 1-3. The chance of a single mother being a 1-2 is like very slim to none. Are there some? Usually they come from families that have influential families, if they're two in the twos. And not too many women actually come from an influential family that are single mothers. Typically, they either have their father or their widows, basically, because something happened to the father or their children. But most women fall in that category. Moving right along to the next topics at hand, is the step parenting versus real parenting. The step parenting versus real parenting. What I mean by that is like the real father of the child versus the stepfather of the child. Typically, how it works when it comes to fathers is the stepfather is relegated to just the wallet and cleaning up any messes that her children makes. So it's one of those things, as a stepfather, you have to realize and understand and be willing to actually accept that role, if you're willing to accept that role, because I'm not fin to accept that role. I'm not fin to pay for some shit that I can't prevent from happening. I'm not fin to pay for anything that I can't prevent or stop or have a chance to, but I'm not allowed to because I'm not your father. And that's typically one of the many things that you'll get when it comes to being a stepfather. You're not their father. Like, why am I here then? If it's a package deal, why the fuck am I here? So it's like one of those things where it's like, it's an eternal struggle with men, because you'll hear, women say, it's a package deal. You have to accept me and my children. The minute you accept her and her children, now you can't really parent her children for the fact that you're not the father. So now you're stuck in a relationship with a bunch of badass kids that you can't really do anything with, but open up your wallet and make sure they have a lovely life, and that they get, like, the best and greatest treatment in the whole entire world. It's typically how that works. So it's one of those things where, like, you're just a fucking wallet. You'll be nothing more than a fucking wallet. And it's one of those things where you have to accept the fact that it's one of those things you have to accept the fact that, that's all you're going to be relegated to. You're going to be nothing more than a bill payer. And if your children fuck up, you're going to have to clean up after your children. But you can't stop them from doing it. You got to let them live their lives and their truths. And if they fuck up, you just got to pay for it legally or financially if they destroy some shit, basically. So it's one of those things where you're always going to have to pay for their fuck ups. It's sad, but it's true. It's very sad, but true. And the thing about being a real parent is, you have all the rights to actually be an actual parent. Even in the current court system, you're allowed to discipline them. You're allowed to tell them that they're doing wrong and this, that, and the other. So why would you want to be a step parent if you can't tell children, or try to send children on the right path or the right track? Why would you want to be in that position? Another thing is, typically, because women's poor decision-making skills, they typically date men who aren't the best for their children. So, abuse will ensue, mental abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse will actually ensue. The sad part about that is, believe it or not, despite the fact that, we always paint men in a negative light, female step parents actually do most of this shit to children than actual male step parents do. Don't get me wrong. There is some shit like, what that'll happen where like the stepfather's a drunken alcoholic. Yeah, that happens. But when it comes to like all the other aspects and other abuses, the female step parent is usually the one that's committing all these atrocious acts against the actual children. And that's one of those things where it's like you have to actually be able to, you as a man have to be able to weed out and pick a woman based on, not only because she looks good or not because she's willing to date you, but if a woman's willing to date you, you got to question that for all intents and purposes. If you're a single father, if a woman's willing to date you, you have to question her motives all the time. And if you're a single mother, you basically just pick anything with a dick that looks somewhat good, who somewhat got some street credibility and shit like that, so you can keep your life exciting, and keep the money rolling in and keep your life exciting. That's typically how women pick the next stepfather. They never really pick a guy that actually is doing fairly good with their life or doing good with his life, because they typically, just make it so it's like, well, I don't need that. But the sad part about that is women like that tend to start picking men when it actually is better for them to do so in their lives after they start hitting because there's a lot of mothers that are in their 40s and late 30s and early 40s that they're still trying to relive their glory days, like they're still young and shit like that. Meanwhile, they're not that young, and they don't have the energy, nor do they have the backing, and it's shit like it's the shit where like you look at it and it's like, well, now she wants to settle down with somebody real. The sad part about that, by the time a man is actually her age, men in her age bracket, by the time a man is actually her age, either he either wants to smash it just for fun, or he's looking for somebody in their 20s. That's typically how it works. A man that's like this, anywhere between 35 and 45 is basically either looking just to smash you or looking for a woman. Well, he's looking to have fun with you, or he's looking for a woman that is in her 20s. That's typically how this shit works. And the sad part about that is it hurts people's feelings when you say that, for the fact that that's the reality. That is really the reality. That is really reality. The sad part about that is a lot of men get caught up in this mess, not knowing that they're getting caught up in this mess, or not really paying attention fully to the mess that they're caught up in. And it's a sad reality of the day. Another thing that a lot of men have a problem with is the whole entire Disney princess, or the Disney fairy tale on what a stepfather is supposed to be. If you ever notice, something I noticed about Disney, they're very good at painting stepmothers in a proper light. Like if you remember Cinderella, like her father was a pretty well-to-do guy. After he passed away, the stepmother treated her daughters better than Cinderella because it wasn't her daughters. That's typically how that works in real life. So it's one of those things where Disney actually got that right when it comes to women. There was always the wicked stepmother, because it's just true. That trope is like more true than any other trope that you could possibly get from Disney. Is the whole entire wicked stepmother, because that's basically how your child. Think of, like, anytime a man gets into a relationship with a woman, just know that wicked stepmother that they always have in Disney is basically how your child is going to be treated by that person. And if it's not that, 9 times out of 10, if it's a son, there's a high chance she might be, diddling your son. And it's the cold hard reality about it. It's the cold hard reality. She might be diddling your son. If you're actually in a relationship with a woman and you have a son, you got to watch out for your son's well-being. Because the sad part about that is a woman is more likely to do some abuse or abuse a child in any way, shape, or form than a man is in a relationship. Because it's just facts. The sad part about that is men do it less than women, but we betray men. We always showcase men doing it more than women, which is sad. Like, despite the fact that women, it's basically like, police shootings when it comes to black people. Like, we know that white people get shot, but we don't really televise it like we do with black people. We televise the shit out of it when it comes to black people. We sweep it under the rug when it comes to white people, Latino people, or Asian people. But we'll literally sensationalize it when it's just a black person, despite the fact that less black people actually get shot by police than any other group of people. The actual statistics is 45% of white people are actually shot by the police every year. 45% of white people are shot by police every year. Only 25% of black people, I think it's 23 to 25% of black people are actually shot by police every year. Then you got like 16% Latinos that are shot by police every year or something along the lines of that. And the sad part about that is, we always got to sensationalize this stuff. This is typically how that works. We're going to sensationalize the man doing the wrong thing, despite the fact that it's less than what the women are doing. But we can't talk about the whammons because they're whammons. So it's pretty much how that works when it comes down to the statistics on that. The sad part about that is when it comes to the Disney fairy tale, they always paint every now and then they'll paint the man, the stepfather, as like absent, or the father as gone or no longer there. If you ever notice, like the father either died or he left, or he went on some journey and passed away, basically leaving the family. It's always something where they actually make the father not there or not home or dead. If you ever notice with the Disney thing. But the funny thing about that is something I've always noticed about the stepmother. They've always actually accurately depicted the stepmother as being a wicked stepmother, which is actually always very true. That's one thing I can give Disney. However, I'm not willing to give Disney any more than that. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, we're going to transition into the blended family. The blended family is both good and bad, for the fact that the problem with a blended family is if you come from a different socioeconomic background than the actual mother or the other parent, well, usually the father's coming. A single father's always going to come from a different socioeconomic background than a single mother. It is what it is. No matter how you cut it, it is what it is. Like, at the end of the day, a single dad's always going to do better than a single mother. A single dad has better financial freedom than a single mother. This is typically why single fathers do better by raising their children than single mothers do, for the fact that they have the finances and the resources to actually do so, whereas single mothers, they tend to like either A, leech off the system, or B, suffer through it silently. That's typically how it works. It's the cold hard truth. Like, single mothers will either leech off the system or they'll suffer through it silently because they don't want to be labeled as a leech on the system. Because either a lot of these mothers have like a negative connotation on, negative outlook on women who actually, suck off the system. So they'll suffer silently instead of leech off the system. A lot of them do it. It sucks, but a lot of them actually do it. So their children will live in damn near impoverished situations. And it's sad that it happens, but it's typically how it works. Like a good example of that, let's just say me, Tico, Trent decided to date we'll just pick any single mother in the United States. If me, Tico, Trent decided to date any single mother in the United States, I would literally be bringing my upper class to a lower class woman. Because typically single mothers make a maximum of $29,000 a year, if that. That's just being nice. Most single mothers make $29,000 maximum a year. That's pretty much their roof rate for single mothers, statistically. Like, I personally make way more than that, and you also got to take consideration too. Like a good example, we'll just say me, Tico, Trent. It's me and my 3 oldest daughters. We'll just say it's going to be Deshari. Deshari is going to be in this mess. Kieran's going to be in this mess, and Talia's going to be in this mess. We'll just make it so like those are the 3 that I got going on. We'll just say I date a single mother. She has 3 children, so it's basically now going to be the Brady Bunch and shit like that. So we got like, it's the Brady Bunch now. So we got like 8 people living under this roof for all intents and purposes. Now the problem with dating a single mother is, one, you have to basically overcome the financial aspect that she lacks in. And so basically you're giving her an upgrade. And the sad part about that, you have to pick and choose whose house is staying and whose house is going, because apparently you're going to move in together. So you got to pick and choose whose house is staying and whose house is going. That's typically another problem that I have with dating single mothers, because let's just say, hypothetically, if I was to date a single mother, I'm keeping my house. You can come over and visit, but you got to take your ass home. That's pretty much how I feel about it. You can come over and visit, but take your ass home. Pay for your own bills, pay for your own household. Don't get it twisted over here. I ain't paying for shit. We could be in a relationship, but you got to handle your own shit. That's pretty much the best way I can describe. That's the best way you can actually do a relationship with a single mother and it to be any good. Because at the end of the day, if you do it that way, now she has to worry that she's not with you. That's what's up. That's what's up. Typically, how it works is you how did it pan out for you, Hidden, when you did that? But back to the actual topic. At the end of the day, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to date a single mother, you live in your household, she lives in her household, she handles her own finances, you handle your own finances. She can come over and visit, don't leave any clothes, basically bring an overnight bag and take it back with you, basically, along with your toothbrush. So it's one of those things where it's like, she can come over and visit and have sexy time. You can go over and visit and have sexy time. She can come over and visit and have sexy time. Don't leave any clothes at each other's house, basically. Make sure she basically put all her shit back in her bag, because there ain't no moving in at the end of the day. Because women will do that and say, well, it'll be easier if I leave something at your house. Well, no. Because now you can say you actually live here, and I ain't got time for that bullshit when I got to put you out. And that's pretty much how it is. So if you're going to date a single mother, you live at your house, you live at her house. She pay her own shit, you pay your own shit. That's pretty much how it's going to work if you're going to date one. That's the only way I can actually tell you to actually do it if you're going to do it. I suggest against it, but if you're going to do it that way. She lives at her own house, you live at your own house, y'all never move in together. She pays her own shit, you pay your own shit. End of story. If you want to help her financially, that's totally up to you. But I advise against it. That's pretty much how it is. So never move in. Never move in with a single mother, and never move a single mother in with you. Make her stay at her own house. Make her handle her own stuff. Make her independent like she claims she is. And that's pretty much how it is. Because the sad part about that type of dynamic right there is, one, going to keep her around much longer because now she's invested. It's a passive investment, basically. And what I mean by that is she's investing and paying for her own shit in this relationship, which typically goes the opposite direction. When you get into a relationship with a single woman or a single mother, you're paying for all the shit. However, when you're in that relationship, she's paying for her own shit. So now she's invested in that relationship for the fact that you're basically committed to each other, non-cohabitation wise. You're basically, in a romantic relationship. The only problem with that is the whole entire trust issue. 9 times out of 10, she's not going to trust you more than you're not going to trust her. That's pretty much how it works. But the sad part about that is her knowing that she doesn't have the power to control your household or change rules in your own household, or have power over you because you're in her household, gives her that sense of urgency that she's got to always fly right with you, for the fact that she can always be left, because in her mind, because you live in your own house, you're not invested in her, and you don't pay for anything of her stuff. So now she's actually more invested in the relationship than you are, for the fact that she's not staying at your house, you're not staying at her house, and now she's thinking all the crazy things that you could possibly be doing at your house. You see what I'm saying? So now you could probably have a woman at your house, or you're probably seeing somebody else, or anything along the lines of that is running through her mind, where it's like, you really don't care because you're at your house and you're just chilling. And 9 times out of 10, or 10 out of 10 times, you don't have anybody else at your house. It's just probably you and your children, if you have children. It's simply how that works, which is pretty funny, which is really, really funny. What's up, McTown and Lynn? But the sad part about that is, typically how this works is now you don't change the power dynamic or the power structure and of the relationship for all intents and purposes. Because at the end of the day, if you live with a woman, you don't have any power at all. If a woman lives with you, you don't lost all the power of your own household. Because how it works is, now she's getting mail at your house. Now you got to treat it as if she's a renter at your house, or she's an actual resident at your house. That's the overall problem. I try again. I try. And it's pretty much how it works. So it's one of those things where it's like you have to be able to pick and choose and understand how how it's actually working and the dynamic of the relationship they're actually in. So it's one of those things where it's like you have to be able to. All right, see you, Shinobi One. Uh, it's typically one of those things where you have to be able to pick and choose and understand the dynamics and understand what's going on and within that relationship and or anything along the lines of that. So it's one of those things where like you have to completely understand. It's one of those things where it's like you have to understand the dynamic of that relationship because if you don't, you're going to get screwed. Or you're going to get done dirty. This is typically why I say it's typically the same. My same thoughts on women that if you're going to date a woman from another country, keep her in that country. If you're going to date a woman and she has her own place, leave her at her place. Don't let her move in with you. Don't move in with her. Maintain your power and everything that you have. Because the sad part about that, her problem with the whole entire situation setup is going to be she can't control and or she doesn't have unlimited access to you if she has to stay at her own place. The most she got is she can call you, and every now and again she can come visit you, or she can come visit you when she thinks something's out of whack. It's pretty much how it works. So it's one of those things where you as a man have more power in that type of dynamic than a woman will. Women will in that type of dynamic. If you actually live in separate houses, you got to pay your own bills, and she's got to pay her own stuff. You pay your own stuff, and she's got to handle all her own stuff, and she can't stay at your house. It's one of those things where like you have to basically be able to. You have to be able to basically maneuver that properly. And the sad part about that, depending on where you live, especially in Canada, if a woman is staying with you, I want to say overnight for multiple times for a long period of time, that's considered a long-term relationship or a common law relationship in Canada. So this is probably not for you. To be honest with you, this is probably not, especially in Ontario, this is probably not for you. So if you're going to do something, you're going to have to put the woman out that day. So, she come over for the afternoon, she have some dinner, you put her out. Pretty much how it works. So you got to go home, basically. So it's one of those things where it's like, you got to set the ground rules for that so you don't have to worry about being screwed over. Because the minute she spends the night at your house, that counts as a day her living at your house. And if you do that multiple times over a long period of time, that one time counts as like a year or a half a month, half a year or a year, basically, in the eyes of the court in Toronto or in Ontario. So you can actually literally have to pay child support or, not child support, but alimony to a woman in Canada if she stays at your house overnight multiple times throughout the many years. So it's one of those things where it's like you want to keep her in her own place, you want to stay in your own place, you don't want to do anything crazy or make any crazy or rash decisions on bringing her in as a you don't want to bring her in, basically, pretty much. So it's one of those things where like you have to control the situation to the point where like the power dynamic is in your court as a man. And so if you're going to do that, basically, like I say, leave her at her house, you stay at your house, you only go over to visit, you come back to your house, basically. You barely do night spending, basically. You basically go out on dates. She drives her own car to the date, you drive your own car to the date, stuff like that. So you keep the power dynamic because it keeps her wondering what you're doing while she's not with you, what you're doing with all the time that you're not spending with her. It's typically how that works. And the sad part about that, because she's dating you, it makes you higher value than she is in the relationship, despite the fact that you may have started out as equal value, or she might have started out as, she believing that she's better than you for this reason. Now that you actually laid on the ground rules saying that I'd rather live in my house, you live in your house, we're not moving in together, you basically lay the ground rules down for letting her know your standards and your values for all intents and purposes, which ends up making you more valuable than she would ever be in this relationship for the fact that she doesn't have control over your life. She doesn't have control over your household, and she can't manipulate shit in your household for all intents and purposes. So it's one of those things where it's like she has no control of your household, therefore she feels as though that you're better than her in her mind. Despite the fact that she might act like she's better than you, in her mind, she knows that you're better than her because she doesn't have any power to manipulate your household. Is typically how that works. It's pretty much all it really is. So it's one of those things where it's like you're 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 living within the guise of a woman who is not able to control your household and or not able to get her way for the fact that she has no rights. She basically has the rights of a visitor in your household. It's pretty much what it is. Despite the fact that she might be your girlfriend or whatever you decide to call her, she has no rights in your household. She basically has the same rights as a visitor. So, like a good example of that is if you actually stay separate and actually date this woman, how much rights does a visitor actually have in your house over your actual household residence? Think about that. Like your dog probably has more rights than she does. Your dog probably has more rights than she does if she's a visitor at your household. That's typically how that works. And that's pretty much all it would ever be. It'd be like having a babysitter at your house for all intents and purposes. The babysitter only has as much rights as she's afforded for that time being. It's pretty much how it works. So it's one of those things as a human being, you have to realize that, you never want to give women more power than she needs to have. Or you never want to give women a crazy amount of power that they don't deserve. It's pretty much how that works. Because the cold hard reality about it is a lot of men fall into the trap of doing this shit, and they shouldn't. A lot of men fall into the trap of doing this. And the sad part about that, I would say don't do it altogether and don't date a single mother. But there are men out there that's willing to do it. And so I got to actually make a video just for them if they're willing to do it, sadly. And make it so that they can protect themselves while doing it. I mean, that's the cold hard reality of the day. I got to actually make a video to protect single fathers from making stupid decisions. Like, think about that. I mean, or fathers and men in general who are willing to get themselves into this mess. I got to make a video just to protect them from this shit. It's simply how it works. But at the end of the day, when it comes to this, you basically want to keep your household as separate as humanly possible. You basically want to make it so that she has no access to be able to demand to live in your house and or be able to control anything in your house or manipulate anything in your house, or to the point where you don't have to actively have to go to court to have to put her out your house. So it's one of those things where you want to keep that minimum. You want to basically keep her in her household and keep her mail going to her household. Make sure she doesn't send any mail to your house because you're going to have to do some whole entire hot mess juggling to actually make it so it is right. So, she can't manipulate, the shit like that. Because the sad part about that, women will do some shit like that sneakily and get mail sent to your house. And this is cold hard reality. They literally will. They will literally have mail sent to your house just so they can have some moniker of power at your house. Typically, what you do with that is you basically say either return to sender, or you basically say return to sender for all intents and purposes because you don't want to accept any mail at your house and say person doesn't live here, return to sender. Wrong address, return to sender. And it's typically how that works. So you always want to dodge women trying to pull some sneak shit basically like that when it comes to your household. You never want them to be able to, have any moniker or power in your household for all intents and purposes, because it's not her household, it's your household. And you're the king of that castle when it comes to blended families. So when it comes to blended families, keep her ass at her house. You stay at your house. You don't move in together. She'd come over to visit, but she got to take her toothbrush with her in the morning. And you go over to visit. Make sure you take your shit in the morning too. And don't fall for the whole entire, it'd be easier and I won't have to carry it with me if this. They carry a lot of shit in their purses on a regular basis. So I wouldn't be shocked if they have a toothbrush in their fucking purse. So don't even listen to that shit, that bullshit that they're trying to pitch you for the fact that a lot of them carry this stuff in their purse. So it's not nothing for them to not carry a bag with a lot of shit in it for all intents and purposes. So they'll never fall for that okie doke that women will try to, well, it'll be easier if I leave something at your house. Please, woman, I know I've seen your car. 9 times out of 10, you probably got to change the clothes in your trunk, or you probably got to change the clothes in a really, really big bag. So don't even try to swing it that way. Don't even listen to that. It's typically how that works. like I basically described the hurdles in reality that you'll run into when it comes to living with a single mother, or being in a relationship with a single mother for all intents and purposes. And I already addressed the stepfather versus real parenting, step parenting versus real parenting thing. And when it comes down to it, the whole entire thing is you want to minimize you want to minimize your exposure, your household exposure to the woman. And it's one of those things where it's like you have to minimize your household exposure to this woman, because if you don't, you're going to be in a world of hurt. Because there's certain laws in certain states where if a woman stays overnight multiple times in certain states, like there is in Ontario, or if she gets mail at your house, it automatically falls into the whole entire common law relationship. The sad part about that is a lot of states have gotten rid of that, but there are certain states that actually made it a part of their law, or made it so because there's a lot of men not getting married, and it benefits women more. It benefits women more than men to have a common law relationship. And the common law relationship works the same as the actual marriage. You have to start dividing up assets and shit like that, and you got to start losing a lot of shit if you're common law. So it works very nicely for women who date men who live in common law relationship states or counties or cities and stuff like that. So it doesn't work in the favor of men at all. And this is typically what you're facing. You're facing a new version of marriage without actually being married, but you have to divvy up your assets because the courts and the government got involved in your life again. So it's yeah, and you're right, Hidden. They do carry their shit in their glove compartment or their purse. And in Ontario, like I was telling, yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And the sad part about that, there was a case in Ontario where a guy was actually dating a woman for years on end, and it was an on again, off again relationship. And the fact that she spent the night with them on trips, or at his at one of his timeshares, or at one of his vacation homes, she was able to actually prove that they were actually in a relationship, a common law relationship. So she got spousal support from this guy for this reason. I want to say it's upwards of like $50,000 a month from this guy that she got from this guy, basically because she stayed at his vacation homes, or she stayed at his she basically stayed at his vacation home or his cabin, and that amount of time she stayed there was able to add up to amount that she was able to get common law, which is very sad. So all that time that she actually was able to stay at his cabin added up to 3 months of them staying together. Or the time she spent, they even counted the time she spent the night at his house, or the time she spent the night at her house too. So it's one of those things where it added up to an amount of 3 months, which is very sad. And now he got to pay her $50,000, and she's a single mother of 2, and he's got to pay her $50,000 of spousal support now. And it's one of those things, as a man, you got to watch out for this stuff. Because the sad part about that, you're nothing, like I said at the beginning, you're nothing more than a wallet. You're nothing more than a walking ATM to women if you're a stepfather. That's all you are, and that's all you ever be. And it's one of those things where it's like, now she's living pretty. Now, $50,000 in Canada, if you know anything about it, is a pretty penny for a single mother. Like, because most single mothers in Canada aren't even making that much. Most single mothers, I think the average medium income for single mothers in Canada, I want to say, is probably about like anywhere between 27 and 32,000, I want to say, give or take, in Canada. That's the median income for a single mother in Canada. It's higher. It's a lot higher than America. I know it's either about the same. Well, if you actually cover for inflation and shit like that, or the exchange rate, it's about the same, if not less than America. But there are more benefits where you don't have to actually, You ain't got to worry about, public assistance and shit like that. Whereas they actually have like, free healthcare is a benefit that, they get from that. Which is sucky, but I mean, it's okay if you pay taxes. Everybody's paying taxes into this shit. It's okay, but if you get somebody that's not paying taxes into this shit and are not paying for the shit, then it gets kind of sucky. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things where like you have to be able to discern between a person that's there for you and a person that's not there for you. Yeah, it's one of those things where like you gotta figure out if you're the wallet, or you're actually going to be a parent in this actual relationship. And the sad part about that, most men, about 95% of men who go into relationships with single mothers end up just being the walking ATM. They end up not really getting the parenting rights, the parent the child in any way, shape, or form is pretty much how it works. It's sad, but it's true. It's very sad, but it's true. And the sad part about that is, even when you get into these relationships, even if you do get the parenting rights, you still got to deal with the child saying, "You're not my father." So it's one of those odd hurdles that another hurdle that you got to overcome in a relationship for the fact of that. And the sad part about that, you'll hear that from the children, and the children are not really going to ever really warm up to you for the fact that you'll be treated like a redheaded stepfather at that point. The children would literally treat you like a redheaded stepchild. So it's one of those things where like you got to understand what your place is in that relationship. You have to understand what it is you are in that relationship for this reason. Because the minute you fuck up and the minute you don't realize it and the minute you start, thinking that, everything's okay, is the minute you're going to get, screwed over in that relationship. And you're not going to really feel the full effects of actually being an actual parent in that relationship. That's pretty much how it works. So it's one of those things where like, if you're going to be a stepfather in this relationship, you have to be able to basically do it and do it properly, because, or you got to be willing to like either be a walking wallet, a walking ATM to them, or you got to be willing to actually willing to actually take on the role of actually being an actual father. Because the funny thing about it, like I was saying at the beginning of the stream, is you'll hear a lot of women and they'll say something to the extent of, well, we're a complete package, so you have to accept all of us. And the sad part about that is, once you get into that relationship, you realize very quickly that complete package is a partial package. It's you take care of her and her children, but you can't discipline her children. You just have to accept the fact that, her children. It's pretty much how it works. So it's one of those things where you're going to be in a relationship where you have no power, but to be the financial backer for everything, every mistake or everything that she does. You got to be the financial backer. So it's one of those things where it's typically one of those things where it's like, you have to accept the fact that, this is what it is and this is how it's going to be. It won't change. So you have to accept that. It's sad, but it's so true. So it's one of those things where like you have to accept this about this and understand the whole entire thing. But yeah, it is what it is, and that's pretty much, the life of actually being a step parent. Now there will be a second thing touching on step parents in this whole entire series. It'll probably end up being like video 6 or 7, but there'll be a second part to being a step parent in a relationship where I'll go into other things and other aspects of being a step parent and basically how to be a good step parent and how to be a better step parent if you get the chance to actually parent the actual children. So I will go into that in a more in-depthly in like I think number 7 or number 6 for all intents and purposes. So that'll be either number 7 or number 6 that'll be coming up for red pill parenting. But other than that, the next one's going to be about the types of parenting. Red pill parenting number 4 is going to be about the types of parenting. So the next one that comes up will be about the types of parenting. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's one of those things to you have to be willing to actually accept and be willing to do as a parent. It's one of those things where like you're always going to be at a disadvantage as a step parent for all intents and purposes. The sad part about that, if you're a male, you're going to be at a disadvantage for step parents. The sad part about that is that men who actually are fathers of children tend to always give the stepmother, you know, more control over the reins for all intents and purposes. But the sad part about that, the stepfather never gets as much controls over the reins as a stepmother does, because men actually know that their children actually need two parents, so therefore you got to give her as much freedom in a relationship as you possibly can within reason, whereas the stepfather never gets this freedom. I mean, not never, but he hardly ever gets his freedom. And when he does, it's usually limited, or he actually has some control over the situation. But the sad part about that is he's always resented for trying to be the step up father to that. He's always resented by the child for trying to be the step up father. But he's always it's one of those things where he's never really backed up by the actual mother, and the child's always abusing him or talking shit to him. And there's not very much you can do besides just go to your room, dude. Like, that's all you can really do when you actually have a little bit of more parenting power over stepchildren is, dude, just go to your room. We're not even going to talk about it when your mom comes home. Just go to your room. That's all you can really do as a stepfather. Whereas the stepmother can actually say, well, look, this is how it is. This is how it's going to be. And we're going to do it this way from here on out. Whereas the stepfather, he has none of that power. He basically has to just shut up and hand over money. Like the intro to the Jetsons with Jane Jetson. Was it Jane? Yeah, Jane Jetson. Where he takes out money and he tries to hand it to her and she takes the whole entire wallet. That's pretty much what you'll be in as a step parent in a relationship with a single parent. That's pretty much all you'll be. But the sad part about that, if you do that to the stepmother, she'll feel some type of way about it, or she'll feel slighted. But she could do that to you all day. Like a good example, if y'all both have children, she'll feel as though that she should be able to parent your children in any way, shape, or form, but you can't do that with her children. So there's always a two-way street. There's always a two-way street within a blended family setup. Because she feels as though she should be able to parent your children the way she parents her children and have the free reign to do so, whereas you're not allowed to do that with her children because you're just not allowed, because that's not how it works. You see what I'm saying? So that's one of the many problems that you'll run into and hurdles you'll run into dating a single mother if you both have children, or if you're going to be raising her children, you have no children. So yeah, that's about it. Y'all have a blessed day. Be good to yourselves. Treat yourself like milk, do not but spoil yourselves. Thank everybody for coming. And thank everybody for showed up and only had temporary time to actually visit me and stay with this live stream. And I'd like to thank everybody who was here the whole entire time in this live stream. Y'all have a blessed day. Be good to yourselves. And always improve yourselves, improve upon yourselves, and make yourself the better version of yourselves. Be blessed. Adios.